In 2026, cruise lines have started adding upcharges even to the main dining room. But there are insider tactics that let you eat better and spend less. Today, I will share 12 essential tactics. Like and subscribe for reliable cruise tips and insights. I worked on cruise ships for 7 years, and one thing I noticed consistently was how differently passengers experienced the main dining room depending on what they knew going in. Two couples on the same ship, same night, same menu. One had an extraordinary evening, attentive service, the best table in the room, dishes they would talk about for years. The other couple experienced a perfectly adequate meal, but it lacked any distinctive flair. The difference was almost never luck, it was information. The main dining room on a cruise ship is genuinely one of the best values in travel if you know how to use it. Today, I am going to show you exactly how. Secret number 1 is that your dining time assignment is not fixed, and changing it before you board can transform your entire cruise experience in ways you would not expect. When you book, most cruise lines assign you a dining time, early seating around 6 o'clock or late seating around 8:30. A third option, called My Time Dining or Anytime Dining or Flex Dining, depending on which line you are on, lets you reserve tables at specific times each evening, rather than being locked into one slot for the entire voyage. Most passengers accept whatever they are initially assigned and never think about it again. But here is what the automated assignment does not account for: your actual schedule on board. Early seating passengers often find themselves rushing back from afternoon shore excursions to make their 6 o'clock reservation, still dusty from the port. Late seating passengers sometimes discover that 8:30 is simply too late after a full day of sun, activity, and sea air, particularly for passengers over 60 who find their energy naturally winds down earlier in the evening. Before you sail, log into your cruise line account and take 3 minutes to optimize your dining assignment. If it does not match how you actually want to structure your evenings, request a change. Dining changes are consistently easier to make before the sailing than on board once the dining room is fully allocated, and getting this one detail right sets up every single dinner for the rest of the voyage. Secret number 2 is that the maitre d' is one of the most powerful people in your dining experience, and almost nobody introduces themselves. The maitre d' manages table assignments, handles special requests, accommodates dietary needs that were not pre-registered, and has the authority to do things that a regular waiter simply cannot. On your first night in the main dining room, before you sit down, find the maitre d' and introduce yourself. Mention if you have a preference: a quieter table away from the kitchen, a window seat if available, or a specific area of the room. Mention any dietary considerations that were not handled in advance. Do this politely and briefly, and then thank them. In my years on board, I watched this 30-second conversation result in better tables, more consistent service, and small, thoughtful touches throughout the sailing for the passengers who took the time to do it. The passengers who never spoke to the maitre d' received standard service. Standard is fine, but you can do better. Don't go anywhere, because secret number 4 reveals a menu item most passengers overlook, yet it's often the kitchen's finest creation that evening. Secret number 3 is that dietary restrictions and preferences handled in advance receive dramatically better execution than those raised at the table on the night. If you are vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, lactose intolerant, or have any food allergy, register this with the cruise line before you sail through the online guest portal or by calling the dining services line directly. When dietary needs are pre-registered, the galley receives the information before the sailing begins and prepares dedicated versions of dishes for those passengers in advance. The result is real, thoughtfully prepared food that matches the quality of the standard menu, not a last-minute substitution. When the same request is made at the table for the first time on the night, the kitchen scrambles to accommodate it in real time, often with results that are technically adequate, but lack the care of prepared in advance cooking. This also applies to preferences that are not strictly medical. If you keep kosher, prefer not to eat red meat, want dishes without a particular allergen, or have any other specific need, advance registration consistently produces a better outcome than a tableside request. Take 15 minutes before you sail to log into your booking and fill out the dining preferences section as completely and specifically as you can. Secret number 4 is the one I promised: and it is the daily chef's recommendation or market special that appears on most main dining room menus but rarely gets ordered. Every evening, the menu includes a featured dish that represents what the executive chef is most confident in that night. On C days, when the galley has more time to prepare, these featured dishes are often exceptional. Fresh ingredients, more labor-intensive preparation, the kind of cooking that does not come out of a standard production line. Most passengers scan the menu, order something familiar, and miss it entirely. On your first evening, ask your waiter what the chef is most proud of that night, and whether there is anything that is not on the printed menu but available. On most ships, the answer will surprise you. The galley often prepares small quantities of something outstanding that simply did not make it onto the main card, available only to those who ask. Secret number 5 is about timing, and it is one of the simplest adjustments you can make for a noticeably better experience. The main dining room on most ships serves a large volume of passengers across a relatively compressed time window. The quality of service and the attentiveness of your waiter correlates directly with how many tables they are managing at any given moment. If you arrive at the very opening of your seating, the first few minutes, your waiter has fewer tables in motion and more capacity to give you genuine attention. If you arrive 15 to 20 minutes into the seating, the room is at full capacity. Your waiter is juggling 5 or 6 active tables, and the experience feels more transactional. This small, free adjustment consistently leads to a more relaxed and attentive dining experience. Secret number 6 is that the same waiter team every night is one of the most undervalued aspects of traditional fixed dining, and it is the primary reason experienced cruisers often prefer assigned seating over flexible dining. When you sit at the same table with the same waiter team each night, they learn who you are. They learn that you prefer your soup without croutons, that you like your coffee brought with dessert rather than after, that you always order the fish and would prefer it cooked slightly differently than the menu specifies. By the third night, the experience feels genuinely personal in a way that no restaurant on land replicates without significant expense. If you are using flexible dining and rotating through different areas and staff each night, you are leaving this personalization on the table. Consider choosing a consistent table and requesting the same section each evening. Most dining room managers will accommodate this without any difficulty. Next, we'll cover secret number 8, a request many passengers believe is impossible, but the main dining room can almost always accommodate. Secret number 7 is that the upcharge items appearing on some main dining room menus in 2026 are not always worth the price, and the standard menu often contains better value than passengers realize. Several major cruise lines now feature premium items on the main dining room menu with a supplemental charge of $15 to $25. Lobster tails, premium steaks, certain seafood preparations. These items are presented in a way that makes them feel like the obvious choice for a special evening. But experienced cruisers know that the best execution in the main dining room often comes from the dishes the kitchen has prepared in large quantities with practiced consistency. The roast chicken, the braised short rib, the pasta dish that has been on the rotation for 10 years because the galley makes it well. Ask your waiter which non-premium dishes the kitchen does particularly well that evening. The answer is almost always more satisfying than the upcharge item, and it costs you nothing beyond what you have already paid. Secret number 8 is the one I promised, a special occasion request that the main dining room can almost always fulfill, but only if you ask in advance. If you are celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, or any significant milestone during your cruise, contact the dining services team before you board and inform them of the occasion with the specific date. On most cruise lines, the team will coordinate a small celebration, a decorated dessert, a song from the dining room staff, sometimes a complimentary bottle of wine or a small gift from the chef. None of this happens automatically. It requires a simple email or a note in your booking profile a week before sailing. I watched passengers who had spent a significant milestone quietly because they did not know to ask, while another table, 20 feet away, was celebrating a 30th anniversary with full dining room staff attention because someone had sent one email before they boarded. The effort required is minimal. The result is genuinely memorable. Secret number 9 is about bread service, and it reveals something important about how the galley approaches the meal as a whole. On most cruise ships, the bread brought to your table at the beginning of dinner is baked fresh on board daily by a dedicated baker. The basket that arrives represents the standard rotation for that evening. But in the galley, there are almost always additional baked items that did not make it onto the standard rotation. Specialty loaves from different regions, different preparations, sometimes something the bread baker made in limited quantity that morning, simply because they wanted to. Ask your waiter whether there are any additional bread options beyond what was brought to the table. On ships with a fully staffed bakery operation, and most major cruise ships have one, this question frequently produces something unexpected and genuinely excellent. It also signals to your waiter that you are an engaged, curious, and appreciative diner, and that signal consistently produces better attention and service for the rest of the meal. Secret number 10 is that children's menu items are available to adults on request on most cruise lines, and this is genuinely more useful than it initially sounds. The children's menu on a cruise ship typically includes simpler, more cleanly prepared versions of comfort foods: roasted or grilled chicken, pasta with a light tomato sauce, straightforward fish preparations, and certain desserts that are less elaborate than the adult versions. For passengers who find the main menu on a given evening too rich, too heavy, or simply not aligned with how they are feeling after a long day in port, asking for a children's menu item is entirely acceptable and is handled without comment or judgment by the dining staff. This is particularly valuable in the later days of a cruise, when accumulated rich food has made something lighter feel genuinely appealing. You have paid fully for your dining experience. There is no obligation to order the most elaborate item, and no reason not to ask for something simpler if that is what you want. Secret number 11 is about the closing conversation with your waiter team on the last formal evening, and this one matters more than most passengers realize. Throughout the sailing, your waiter has been learning what you like, adjusting their approach, remembering your preferences, and in some cases going out of their way to make your experience better. The last evening is the appropriate moment to acknowledge that directly and personally. A handwritten thank you card takes 3 minutes to write and lands very differently with a waiter who has been on a 6-month contract, far from their family, than a generic review submitted online after the fact. A personal cash tip at the end of the final dinner, separate from any automatic gratuities, given directly to the waiter and the assistant waiter by name, is the gesture that experienced cruisers consistently make and that the dining team genuinely remembers long after the sailing ends. Your waiter will very likely be assigned to the same section on the next sailing of that ship. If you are returning to the same ship or the same line, requesting that section again at your next booking is a simple way to begin your next cruise with a working relationship already established from the first evening. Secret number 12 is the simplest and the one most passengers discover too late, often on the last sea day of the cruise. The main dining room serves breakfast and lunch, as well as dinner, on most sea days, and these daytime meals are dramatically less crowded than the evening service. The quality of the food is the same, the service is table service, and the experience is noticeably more relaxed, because the volume of passengers at breakfast and lunch is a fraction of what the room holds at dinner. Many passengers spend every sea day breakfast in the buffet line, never realizing that a proper sit-down breakfast in the main dining room is available at the exact same time, with the same staff, at no extra charge. On a 7-night cruise, with 3 or 4 sea days, that is 3 or 4 genuinely unhurried mornings in a calm dining room with attentive service, rather than navigating a crowded buffet with a tray. Check your daily program each morning of a sea day for the main dining room operating hours. That single habit, repeated on each sea day, improves your mornings more than anything else on this list. You now possess insights most passengers only gain after multiple cruises. Introduce yourself to the maitre d' on night 1. Register your preferences before you board. Ask your waiter what the kitchen is doing particularly well that evening. Arrive early to your seating. And on the last night, say thank you in a way that means something. The main dining room is not just the free option. Used correctly, it is one of the best parts of the trip. Like and subscribe, wishing you a truly memorable voyage.